This is Meet the Developers. This is an annual tradition. I follow in the lines of Adam Gross, who was here last year but isn't here now. I don't see him. And Chris Fry, my old boss, in saying that this is my favorite session because this is the longest time that I have before next Dreamforce. Because September 15th, it's the longest amount of time between now and next Dreamforce. It's 1 year. Yeah, I don't have any of the sessions. Stop. Don't quit.
You guys can debate this another time.
However, thank you. Because what happens back at headquarters next week is what are we doing for next Dreamforce? And I wish I wasn't kidding about that. As always, this is an interactive session, please. It's driven by your questions. There will be a couple introductions of people up here. And Janine, hello. But before that, we often have a tendency during this session to talk about things that are not yet done. So do not make any purchasing decisions based on anything anyone here ever says. Please consult your account executive to learn the truth. What? So, with the Safe Harbor slide, we have a series of people that have been here a while, senior technological biggywigs. Please, Janine, come up here. And what I'd like to do, you can come up, Susan, if you want. What I'd like to do is have people introduce themselves and what they work on, how long they've been at Salesforce, and what they liked most about this Dreamforce. And I will start. Hi, I'm Stephen Tam. I am Salesforce CTO. I've been here a decade, less a week. And the thing that I thought was the coolest thing that I had to talk about here was something we didn't talk about, which was Lightning Connect, which is the whole ETL integration stuff that we have, but we didn't talk about it. So that was my favorite part here.
Yeah, that's a good one. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Walter Macklem. I have been at Salesforce as an engineer for about 9 years now. This is my probably 5th or 6th Meet the Developer session here. Good to see some familiar faces again. If I had to pick, I'm going to pick a small feature that you probably saw in some of the keynotes, which was the ability to do client-side filtering of list views in S1. I think that is super cool. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kedar Doshi. I'm the CTO for the Sales Cloud, the Service Cloud, and Chatter. And Community Cloud. My favorite thing this Dreamforce was the surfboard. I actually managed to stay on the whole time.
Hey, I'm Greg Fee. I've been at Salesforce since 2009, on Apex the whole time. My favorite feature of this Dreamforce was announcing the debugger, because, yeah. Since he promised it 3 years ago, but then we actually had to make it, so it took a while. Yeah.
I have another one. I'll pass it down. Phil Calvin. I'm the CTO for Salesforce One Platform. I think the coolest thing this Dreamforce, I've been here for coming up to between 4 and 5 years, something like that. Coolest thing this Dreamforce was seeing all the Lightning, the builders, the components, and everybody getting charged up about how we build S1. I think that was very cool.
Hi, I'm Janine Walters. I'm an architect, been here 10.5 years. My favorite thing at Dreamforce, probably True to the Core, which we did yesterday afternoon. Always lots of fun, crazy good time. I recommend it if you haven't been.
Hi, my name is Richard Pack. I'm the architect for Salesforce One. I've been here 4.5 years. Phil and I started the same day. My favorite thing so far was to see what people have already built using Lightning extensions.
You can repeat it.
Doug Chasman, distinguished engineer. Thank you. Yeah. So I've been working on the Lightning platform and taking Lightning to Force.com, and been at Salesforce 10.25 years. So since you had your 10.5, my 10.25 for this audience. And my favorite thing that's Dreamforce actually has been similar. What the partners have done, what ISVs I've had the privilege to work with the pilot program and the ISVs and partners that have been in there for Lightning components. And what they've built is what I'm most impressed by. I think I think S1 is amazing, extension's amazing, all this other stuff. But the fact that we're actually seeing what they contribute and their excitement level and all of you, that's the biggie for me.
Okay, so again, this is an interactive session. We are here to answer your questions. So please go to the two mics in the middle if you have any questions for us. Otherwise, this is going to be a very short session. So please go to the mics. Okay. We can't, so here's the problem. We cannot raise the lights in the room or we go blind. Those are our choices. So I'm sorry that it's the mood lighting. Hey, everyone. But this is what we got. Okay, y'all don't have to be at the same mic, but this is the way we'll roll. I was going to alternate between them, but, you know, you can work it out amongst yourselves. The gentleman in front, please introduce yourself by name and where you work and what you do, and then ask us whatever Apex questions you have for the front row.
All right. My name is Michael Farrington, or Michael Force, you might know me as. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Ringlead. And I was just wondering, like, you know, as somebody who's one of our engineers, but at the same time, I got to bounce, you know, wear a lot of hats. Obviously, we're much smaller than you guys are. But sometimes when cases will get escalated to me and I have to go and, like, you know, put on that hat, the support hat, I was just wondering if you could shed some light on how you guys manage those sort of things, like how often are cases getting escalated all the way to you guys and how much of your time is spent on that, and just how you feel about support in general. Like, are you expecting it to go that way where you get cases, or are you expecting, like, I know, you know, I can be like a jerk and I'll just like tweet directly at some of you, and, you know, how do you feel about that? And then obviously the community is like a big thing now, so I'm just wondering, you know, all those thoughts.
I'll give some thoughts, just because and the reason I grabbed the mic is because basically coming up to Dreamforce is a pretty intense time for the product teams. Everything is amplified, to say the least. So we do, for S1, we have a triage team that basically monitors with our support group as well as App Store reviews, and they meet with the quality leads and they try and channel that into what are actual issues versus say a configuration issue on the particular application. And then we have escalations that turn into things called red accounts, and then we end up basically putting, sometimes it's the CFL team tries to isolate it and find a fix or a workaround, and then they get escalated to bugs, and then we have SLAs around different types of bug resolutions depending on the number of cases reported to them, that type of thing.
So when it comes to case escalation, you guys are pretty well shielded, is what you're saying. Like, it never gets assigned directly to you. It's more.
No, it always does. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Once it's like qualified as a bug, I guess.
Well, so like an example is there was a big issue this past weekend, and the two gentlemen to my right basically spent the entire weekend trying to sort it out. And I don't think they had much sleep. So, everyone gets pretty seriously involved.
Okay. And then how about usurping that whole process and just like trying to seek you guys out personally? Is that should we feel guilty about that or not?
That happens too.
All right.
There was a person who complained very loudly on Twitter at Benioff, and don't do that, because what happens is we get a phone call, usually from Mark or Parker, and I know Doug's got it, I know Phil's got it, I've got it, where you get on the phone with the dude the next day and he complains about how social.com doesn't integrate with force.com, and you're like, yeah, we'll work on that. We generally like people to go to the idea exchange for feature requests, talking to product managers, don't go to Mark. But the cases are owned by the support organization, but we have a thing called an investigation, which is tied into our bug system. And so we don't get assigned cases, we get assigned investigations. Because they're in two different systems, it's complicated, but we do often, like a month ago, I was actually assigned one of the cases because Parker told me I had to fix it. So,
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so Jason Venable, I lead application development for an ISV program. And just word of advice, if you have bugs to bitch about, do that later. Don't ask these guys about bugs because we get those questions every year. But what I want to know about is on Salesforce One, when you click a link, you launch the Salesforce One page, a Visualforce page, what is happening? It seems slow. Like when you go to a web page, the web page loads. You say, give me that web page, you get the web page back. In Salesforce One, it seems there's a lot of redirects going on and everything's going really slow. So what's going on there, and is it going to get better?
It's funny you should mention that because we're talking specifically Visualforce integration into S1. That's actually one of the things that we were looking into with our own Dreamforce app this year. And one of the things we discovered pretty quickly, we just didn't notice for whatever reason, that there is actually an extra hop already. If you watch the traffic, you'll see that there's a hop to go to the server, and what comes back is like a JavaScript-based redirect that says, hey, here's where you really want to go. And that's where you're seeing sort of this blank, and then the spinner goes away, then it's blank, and then an indeterminate amount of time based on how long it takes to load your real content. Then the stuff fades in. We're eliminating that intermediate hop. After that, beyond that, it is what it is as far as, we'd like to see you start to take advantage of Lightning for a lot of other reasons and get out of that iframed silo and become peers with us finally, not siloed areas. That's one of the exciting parts about the differences between Lightning actually is that difference. It opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. So that's improving that a little bit.
It was an accidental feature.
There's also a lot of things you can do to make the VF page a lot faster. There's a lot of tricks using the caching that you can do. You can offload a lot of the static resources so they don't come in with your payload. So we've seen some pages that, especially in S1 and on crappy 3G, that they will just take forever, and that can be super optimized away. So.
All right, I'm Chris Peterson. I'm a senior developer at FinancialForce.com and an interesting person enough that half of you know me already. First off, I just wanted to give you a piece of feedback and say thank you for adopting a more liberal policy on posting known issues. That's been immensely helpful, especially in the ISV space, that we can say, no, look, Salesforce really is working on it. Here's a link. So thank you all for your part in that. My question is a little bit of a marketing and technical overlap. It sounds like Aura was renamed to Lightning, but I still see it called Aura, and I still see Aura Framework.
So, okay, let me just, we know it's a confusing thing. So first of all, Lightning is a brand across more than just Lightning components. The closest analog is Aura to Lightning components. Aura is a technology open source technology that we've used to power Lightning components. Lightning components isn't just Aura, it's all of the extra secret sauce that makes Force.com what it is. It's mixing in things like our security model. It's mixing in the ability to access Apex, for one thing. Right? When you're out in open source using Aura today, you can use Java for, if you're running it on your own stack, you can use Java or some other JVM-based languages for your server-side behavior. On top of Force.com, it's Apex. And there's a long list of things that Standard Controller, all these things that we're working on. So the relationship there is you can think of Aura as an enabling technology that we've open sourced, went out to the community, we brought it back in ourselves, and are using it ourselves to power all of Lightning. So it's the process builder, app builder, all these things are Aura based.
So next time I say to a marketing person, Aura is the technology underpinning Lightning, and they tell me, shh, I can tell them that they're wrong confidently.
Well, I don't know why they're shushing you. I mean, it's
excellent.
not.
All right, so Aura's
it's not
still
like
a thing.
it's this.
Excellent.
It's not a nasty stepchild or some secret. I think maybe it's it's okay. It's all right to say Aura.
As long as I don't say Plumen.
Hi there, I'm Nathan Pepper. S4S be with you. I'll be joining Chris on Monday at Financial Force. And I wanted to say thank you for Environment Hub. Like that was, within the last year, has really saved my life with getting rid of the Excel sheet of orgs. Yeah. Yeah. Environment Hub. Nice. Yeah. I mean, that just saved, when I came on board my last job, it was okay, so my first ISV position, how many orgs we got here? We got 2 apps going on. Where's the QA? Where's the build? That really helped. So version control. And it's not so much as when it's going to be implemented. But yes, like how much of that is a priority, but then also what are like the obstacles that you guys are running into, right, without giving away the secret sauce? Like what?
Somebody here for that team? John, are you in the room?
Nobody from the version control team? I can talk about it. Well, we're doing it.
Nice.
We're doing it, but I don't know what the dates are. But we have an integration where you can have Git, you can take the different versions of the packages, roll forward and roll back, and we're applying it to all of the metadata that you can get through the metadata API. And there is a pilot going on that I think just started, but you need to talk to Ryan Ellis about that. So there is version control. It is coming. I thought that there was even a session on it here, but nobody from that team is here, and I apologize.
Perhaps like maybe in lieu of that, kind of the tooling API and the metadata API, just accessibility gap, kind of the metadata APIs, like our change set's going to be API accessible someday, if I wanted to do that.
Yes, there is a gap. As part of the rebuilding of setup, we are migrating away from the metadata API, which is more of a deployment API, towards the tooling API. I'm guessing nobody from that team is here either. Well, except Josh. Do you want to say anything, Josh? No, Josh doesn't want to contribute anything else to the conversation. Thank you, Josh. But we need to fix the gaps in the metadata API first. Those are mostly done. I know that you have exceptions. You can yell at me for that later. But with the tooling API, it is behind, and we are doing, as part of rebuilding our setup UI, it's all going to be in the tooling API. Okay, he will add something then.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Kaplan. I can give you a little insight of what we're doing on that front. There were separate deployment paths for metadata deployment, for tooling API, for change sets, and we're unifying them into a single unified deployment method that all of the different front ends are going to interact with. So the metadata API will deploy the same path the tooling API does. It'll just be a different front end interface. So that's the big change that we're doing, is to take these disparate things and put them into one. And it's going on right now.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arlen Wilbur. I'm with Wired Triangle. We're a consulting partner and an ISV partner in Durham, North Carolina. And my question is about Lightning components. With the distribution mechanism being packaging, is what I've heard. I'm wondering, from an ISV perspective, if you've got a package on the App Exchange and you want to start leveraging some of the Lightning components that are available either from Salesforce or from third parties that might themselves be managed packages, how are you going to include that in your own managed package? Is there going to be a package hierarchy, dependencies? How's that going to work?
I'll take this one. One of the things that we're doing as part of the industry's effort, if any of you went to the industry keynote, is that we are going to build that on managed packages. And we're doing that so that we align the way that we build with the way that you build. So a lot of the components that we're going to build around healthcare and wealth management, whether it's Lightning, Visualforce, Apex, or whatever, we're going to build in managed packages. That means we're going to have to fix it. And by fix it, I mean the managed package notion of being more of a library than an application, so that you can reuse components and have it so it does the auto installation, making it so that the testing burden is less. More of an installation by reference instead of by value is what we're doing over the next year. We'd have nothing now for you on this, but it is actually my main focus next year. Not one of them. So our number one priority is trust, customer success, and innovation. So,
but
nothing is more important than the trust, customer success, and innovation and employee productivity. So we know the issues that are there around the existing Visualforce components and how, if you are trying to use a managed package as a platform on which to build your applications, there's difficulties. We are going to embark upon this ourselves, both from a nonprofit perspective and from the industry's IBU. But right now, you're going to be in the same sort of boat as everybody else, which is that there are going to be issues around having to do serial installations of the base packages and then the extensions. And then I think the reuse and the extension paradigm is pretty much done, right, Doug? Like, how do I extend?
Are we talking about component level
The
extension?
Lightning
or-
component specifically, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's an additional capability in Lightning components where you can actually extend like in OO terms, you can actually have an implementation inheritance. We've exposed interface inheritance only to date because we've been reworking. If you saw the session earlier today about some of the stuff we're doing with this Halo project, we're retooling the way inheritance works internally, implementation inheritance it has issues around performance and some weird behavior that we wanted to get rid of before we unleashed it on all of you. So there is mechanism for you to actually extend another component, not just composite it. But I'm not sure if we're actually talking about it. The more powerful concept, I think, is actually extensions, which is outside of, it's part of Lightning, and the architect and creator of that is sitting next to me. You want to talk real quickly about extensions, or?
So extensions are the idea to be able to surgically change any part of the views of Salesforce 1. And we're starting with just the views, and we're going to move into the behavior, which is the controllers. So that means that, given let's take a record home page, a detail page of an account, and when you're looking at the fields on the page, you want to change the way that we render a very specific field across all layouts, or a very specific field just on this particular layout. You can assign a Aura component or Lightning component to do that rendering. You can also swap out any of the tabs across record home, or change or add additional tabs. But it's the ability to specify a set of criteria that, when met, I want to substitute in a component. And like I said, we're going to be moving to controllers next.
So we're working on it. That's a big focus for next year, is the extension mechanisms around it. So I don't know if we answered your question, but
You're working on it.
that's as far as I can get.
Somewhat related with packaging, are change sets, do they leverage packaging infrastructure? And can we ever get access to change sets via API?
They do leverage the packaging infrastructure. They use the same underlying infrastructure as managed packages, but we're unifying them all, and then you'll have access to it. I will say one thing: there are some things in change sets that we let you do that you cannot do in packaging, mostly for security reasons. For example, if you have an external data source, then you have the password. You cannot use that using the regular packaging or metadata API, but we do let you do that with change sets. So you won't have access to everything, but most things.
But could we
It's
ever
coming,
get
but we're working on it.
an API access would
Yeah,
maybe...
through the tooling API, yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ben. I'm a developer with Oracle. Hey, at least someone doesn't hate me.
Oracle is a very valuable partner of Salesforce.
Yeah, that's what they tell us too. For the record, I'm actually writing a 100% native application in Salesforce, so I'm not even doing integration. But on a similar note, I'm very impressed with every release, the backwards compatibility that you have, and I have a question related to that. I know that, or I've heard that you guys run our unit tests actually after a release to make sure it still works. I was wondering if you also do similar tests for like a rendered page, similar to like how Selenium confirms that the actual data from the controller made it to an input field on the page, and making sure the look and feel is about the same.
Is anybody here from Cinnamon? Somebody want to talk about Cinnamon? Mr. Waite.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Waite. Kind of watch over some of the programmatic aspects of our platform. And we have a project internally that's actually distributed via the App Exchange called Cinnamon. It is our UI test framework, and it is something that we are in pilot right now with some customers and partners. And if you'd be interested in participating, and anybody in this room would, come and find me after. But it basically allows you to author tests that will run in Selenium using WebDriver. And you get a page object in Apex from which to manipulate the page and facilitate your assertions. So that is something we are working on. Obviously, The ability for you to write those tests is our first step, but our ability to actually use those in what we call the hammer, which is what you were referring to before about us writing tests, running your tests before and after every major release in the test environment. Those will be augmented to that, and it's being designed so we can use those tests in the same infrastructure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I love those kind of answers.
Hi, I'm Daniel Bellinger. I'm from Fuse IT, an ISV partner in New Zealand. First question is more of a sort of put the idea in your head and see if it sticks. I'm looking for a way to run individual test cases in like a test class that might have 20 or more test methods, and then to see what's going on with it. So my idea was to be able to run anonymous Apex in a test context. So you could call a single method, and of course it will pull the log back. See if I can get that to stick in anybody's head, or whether it seems like a good idea or not. Anyone? No?
Do any of you want to answer this?
Well, so say you've got a single test method that's failing, and you've got a really big class with a whole bunch of test cases. Currently, you go through and you comment out all the test methods you don't want.
That's more him.
We are working on some modifications to the test framework that will disconnect the current sort of one test class is run and all the methods are run. We're working on things like suites where you can say this runs in this suite or just run this one method to break that relationship among a bunch of other things that have been on our backlog for a while. I don't know when the one method at a time will show up, but probably as part of the test suite thing, which should be coming, I think will come in the next year.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a much better solution overall.
Safe harbor slide materializes behind me.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing was you could do things like you could test anonymous
Hold on.
Apex.
I'm sorry, I can't. You can keep talking, but I couldn't hear you over the people talking in the front row.
The other one's completely unrelated, the developer console. I've noticed with Lightning components, you can, like you go to Lightning component in the admin area, and you click the developer console button, and it'll actually open it up in the developer console. Is there any documentation for how those links to the developer console are formed?
It's not part of our API, public API.
Yet.
Not yet. I don't know if that's been suggested. I haven't actually heard too much of that. There's a bunch
but
of
it would
work
be
that-
awesome.
Yeah, the developer console you're also seeing as sort of, pardon our dust right now, which you'll see Lightning is sort of this added in there, and it doesn't quite, there's things where if you try and double click on something to nav, it doesn't actually take you somewhere you have to click and then open and that kind of stuff. We've got some fit and finish work to do. That is part of the other part of the beta,
Yeah.
instead of it being GA. We also have a really cool plugin if you're doing Lightning development, a plugin for Sublime, for folks that are Sublime, like that editor. Dave Carroll from our developer evangelist group has an open source implementation of a plugin called Sublime Lightning. If you go into Sublime and just say package manager and install the Lightning plugin, it gives you all of the same capabilities of the dev console today, plus across file searchability, search and replace. Plus, if you're a fan of Sublime like I am, a nice place to work, right? That you're used to. There's nothing wrong with the dev console, but if you like, we want people to use what they like. So another thing to check out. We will be adding support for Lightning into the Eclipse plugin shortly. That's in progress.
Yeah.
Again, pardon our dust, right? We decided to release early instead of having everything perfect so that we could get everybody at least playing with this stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bing Wang. I'm the principal developer for Constant Contact CRM team. My question is mostly was the developer tool or IDE, and so I think over the last few releases we kind of get sort of at least complicated messages about where the IDE is going. Sometimes we heard, maybe we're moving away from it and do more developer console, and sometimes we heard, it's gonna stay, it's gonna evolve. So just want to know, if we should still sort of stay with Eclipse plugin and just kind of train all our new developers still on that, or we should think about something else?
Somebody, Walter just reminded me, next year somebody needs to make sure that we get Ryan Ellison here and he doesn't tell me that he has an ABC. So remind me next year. No, sorry.
So, hi, I'm Josh Kaplan again. I'm still Josh Kaplan again.
Hi, Josh. Just want to say I was the one who kept bugging you about the flex queue, and you're very helpful. Thank you.
In terms of our tools, the general approach has been that we would like to create an API that lets developers build tools into any IDE that they want, so that we can't please everybody. Everyone's got the thing that they need, the one feature they want, and we're not going to be able to build plugins to every single possible IDE. So that was the philosophy behind the tooling API.
Yep.
The developer console was intended to do two main things. Number one, prove that the tooling API was functionally complete. And number two, allow us to get away from the old setup UI pages, which were built a long time ago, and they look like it, and they've got weird. We don't want to fix them. We want sort of the developer console to have feature parity with everything that's there. In terms of which IDE you should use, I don't know that I can answer the question because I don't know necessarily what you prefer as a developer. In general, I would think that if you have a small code base and you're just doing simple operations, the developer console is probably sufficient. If you are a new programmer, the developer console doesn't have as much the overhead as Eclipse has. If you are comfortable with Eclipse, if you've got a large code deployment, you're working in team development, there are features in Eclipse that we haven't tried to copy into the developer console, and it will do a better job in those areas. So it's really going to depend. I mean, I guess everybody in this room is probably going to be towards the Eclipse plugin versus using the developer console, but they have different audiences, different use cases. The other thing with the Eclipse plugin is now it's open source, so I fully expect you to contribute to that by the end of the week. And it lets people build things that we're going to try to focus a lot internally on functionality. So the debugging that we talked about earlier this week, and things like refactoring you APIs and profiling APIs and things that we need to provide APIs to you for, so that you could go out and build something into one of these plugins. That's the thing that the teams are going to be focused on more, less on UI, and so you can take that and figure out where that means we're going to be focused from a UI perspective. But the answer depends on what you want.
Yeah.
I wanted to give the long answer because I get this question a lot, and now you guys can go retweet.
I think that's of course. I think it's not a simple topic, but when tooling API came out, I was really excited because I kind of expected to see the ecosystem to be much bigger and richer, and people developing new things based on that.
There is going to be an implementation of the tooling API in another IDE over the next year.
Okay. Yeah,
that's all I can say.
Yeah, I just don't quite see that happening.
It's happening. It's just not released. So.
Okay. Good.
Ask again later.
Yeah, I'll be here next year. Just if I can, another kind of related question is I saw from the roadmap session hosted by Shauna Wolverton. So there's one line on one of the slides talking about integrated source control, source code management.
Yeah, I mentioned that was what I was talking about earlier. I apologize that I didn't get that anybody from that team in here, but we are going to have integrated source control.
Right, and what's the timeline for that? Of course,
as I said earlier, I don't know because they aren't in the
Not
room.
at all.
I apologize.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hi, Dan Appleman. I'm with Full Circle CRM, an ISV partner.
Welcome back.
Thank you. First is an idea, and I will put it on the idea exchange, but I figured planting seeds. You know how right now, when you exceed debug log limits, you have all of the early stuff, then it stops logging, and then you have your exception. Would it be possible maybe a mode where you have a rolling debug log and it captures the stuff that happens before the exception and throws away all the early stuff? That would be such a time saver because we wouldn't then have to go in and pick which classes are enabled and go through that whole exercise. That would just sort of be a really cool thing.
So FIFO instead of LIFO? You should be able to do that, right?
So I actually forget the details on debug log, which is why I'm staring at Josh right now. I thought we had a mode where we end up skipping the early things.
There are modes where if you have a lot of repetitive stuff, it skips things, but what I really would like is the capture of all the fine detail right before the exception. right before the limits hit, or the exception that kicks you out of everything in the finest detail, so then I can see what my variables are and all that cool stuff.
Right. So the way that we will eventually approach the problem here is to allow you to just log fine detail everywhere and not limit it and throw it into some large data store that no one ever really looks at, and we can keep for every 7 days we clear things out of there and then index into it based on what you actually want. That technology is still sort of being built. We don't have access to it yet. There are things that are being built on it right now. Once it's mature, we will probably adopt that rather than trying to implement something with the current limited file size, because we've got a limited file storage space right now. We're going to wait until we have something that's reasonably like unlimited, that we can start just logging a lot more detail, and then you can filter it when you're actually looking at it. That's the approach we'd like to take. And because there's the promise that this sort of store will exist at some point in the, it's 2 releases from now. It's been that way for a year or 2 now. But 2 releases from now it'll be available to us. We'd prefer to fix it then.
You could give us all wave licenses on the debug logs,
Do what with it?
Wave licenses on the debug logs, billions of records.
We could do that. We're supposed to do that. Cool dashboards on your debug logs. I don't know what they look like anyway. So that's, I think, what we'd like to do to solve that.
Okay. My other question is a little more philosophical, and it's, I think Lightning's wonderful, by the way. I'm very excited about it. I'm actually curious about the future of Aura. We say it's open source, but I'm curious, is this open source meaning it's there so you can look at it, or is it open source meaning you actually expect or hope that the whole world's going to start using it for other things?
I think we would love it if the whole world started using it. I don't think any of us think that that's likely. We do think with the hook that we have with all of you, we have a huge developer population that is going to be using Lightning, which means you're using Aura, and quite frankly, we hope that you'll like it and love it and want to use it in other projects outside of that and want to contribute back. Whether you use it outside of Force.com or not, I don't know. I've always been somewhat skeptical about that, and I'm responsible for the open source image, right, and answering questions on it. By the way, that's another part in our dust. If you go to GitHub, force.com/Aura, we're not ready. We're sort of at our soft opening, if I was going to talk about this as a restaurant, so the wait staff's not really trained. The wait staff is trained, the kitchen staff is great. We don't have our tablecloths on and some of the other things. We're working on that. I'm working with dev marketing starting next week to make it nice and polished and have a forum for asking questions. We're going to be taking care of all that and making it have a much better presence than it has today. We definitely expect that all of you will start helping contribute back through Aura open source, which is something we typically have not been running stuff on our stack that's in open source. We have lots of open source. We contribute back to a lot of projects, but we have very few places where the stuff is running on our service. And what's out there in /Aura on Git is actually what we're running. What we have internally for contractual reasons and licensing and trust, we have an internal Git repo implementation that's private and behind our firewalls. That's what our teams push to, but it's automatically mirrored in real time out to the Git image. So what you're seeing is master, which is basically our next version. And you can fork that. Lots of folks have. And you can issue pull requests. We have it's a couple dozen pull requests that have come in from the outside so far, mostly bug fixes. But we can also talk about new standard components, changes to other things. You can see us developing in the clear. That's the spirit of open source. I also think that we're going to be creating a whole generation of people over the next few years that are using Lightning. And they may go on and use Aura for other things. So I do think, do we position ourselves as an OR with Angular or with React or Polymer or anything? So no, it's an and I've done a couple of sessions with Skip Sauls just here at Dreamforce about what we're doing with Lightning Packs. And that's giving you the recipe and patterns to be successful using those frameworks. Those are also being developed open source. Lightning NG, which is Lightning plus Lightning plus Angular, is one that I'm running myself and am actively looking for folks to test, beta test, all that stuff. It's in its early stages, but it actually solves a lot of stuff that you're going to run into. So that's more of that. I think we do more of that. We start embracing. It's like the tooling stuff. We want you to be able to use the tools that you want to use. Same thing. We'll talk about versioning and all sorts of that kind of stuff at some other point. But hopefully that gives you some confidence that we're serious about it.
There's time for one more question. Thank you, Doug. And then we'll be outside for a little bit, but most of us have to skedaddle. But sorry, you can come ask later. But please continue with the last question of Dreamforce.
Thank you. Hi, Peter Churchill. I'm an independent developer. I've seen like the new process builder, and a couple of questions. One was, do you know, is there any plan to allow you to like call straight to Apex to say, I come down, branch, call this Apex class?
Yes.
Contact? Is that?
Is Leo here? Anybody from Platform Actions here? Leo? No. Is Jim here? Go to the back mic. Just back mic.
Repeating what Steven said, yes. In Spring 15, you'll be able to, there'll be a new interface with your invocable annotation on your Apex classes, and that will bring them into the process builder. And that will be available in Spring 15.
Right. And then,
From both workflow and from visual workflow, right?
Yes.
Yes.
and then I was just curious about, you can create records now, but I was just curious what's behind the scenes to stop like runaway processes and how it seems to be that must be quite difficult to pull off behind the scenes.
That would take a while to get into about the 5-time retriggering, and we don't run the same rule twice. And it's documented someplace, but we generally have limits that you can't create more than how many records per 10,000 in a request. So don't do that, but we have limits to make sure that you don't have infinite loops that infinitely create records, and that's what we got. Okay, well, we're on a couple minutes over. If you have any questions, some of us will be outside. Thank you very much. I hope that you all enjoyed Dreamforce 14. See you back here in this room September 18th, 2015.